Today, we are diving into an art form that is, well, arguably one of the most creative and purely American musical inventions out there, jazz.
It really is.
Our goal here is pretty simple. We want to give you the blueprint for this entire genre so you walk away understanding not just what jazz is, but, why it matters.
That's the core mission.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jazz is a huge cultural force. It's like a living language that's always evolving. And understanding its framework, the history, the rhythms, it gives you a massive advantage.
Whether you're studying it in school or just trying to figure out why a song makes you want to move.
Exactly.
So we've broken this down into three main parts for you. First, we'll get into the origins and the unique musical elements that make jazz sound like, well, jazz.
And we'll get into the instruments and the rhythm, the heartbeat of the music.
And finally, we'll talk about the practical skills, how you actually learn improvisation and the theory behind it all.
To really get jazz, you have to start where it was born.
And that would be New Orleans, right? Down in the U.S. around the late 19th, early 20th century. What was it about that city? Why there?
Well, New Orleans was this unique melting pot. You had people from all over the world bringing their own musical traditions.
Okay.
The real magic happened when African rhythmic ideas, the complex drumming met European harmonic structures like classical melodies and instruments, that collision created something totally new.
And this early jazz wasn't for quiet concert halls, it sounds like. It was music for the streets.
It absolutely was. It was the sound of the community. You'd hear it at parades, funerals. They'd play somber music on the way to the cemetery, and then this high-energy celebratory music on the way back.
Wow. So it was really woven into everyday life.
It was life for dancing, for celebrating.
Okay, so we know where it started, but if we take the instruments away, what are the actual musical elements, the secret sauce that makes jazz sound so different?
That brings us to, I'd say, three main ingredients. The first, and honestly the most important, is improvisation.
Making it up as you go.
Kind of. We can define it as musicians making up some of the notes as they play. They're telling a story in real time.
That sounds incredibly chaotic, though. If everyone's just making up notes, how do they all stay together?
Ah, that's the key. It's not chaos at all. They're improvising over a very specific roadmap.
A roadmap.
The chord progression.
Yeah.
The musicians know exactly when the harmony is going to change, and those changes tell them which notes they can use. It's creative freedom, but inside a defined structure.
That makes so much more sense. So you have a blank page, but you still have to follow the rules of grammar.
Perfect analogy. The next critical piece is the rhythm, and specifically something called syncopation.
Syncopation.
So think about tapping your foot to a normal song. You usually hit the strong beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. Syncopation flips that. It puts the accent on the weak beats, or the ands in between the numbers.
So you're intentionally playing the notes a little off the main beat, and that creates that bouncy, kind of unexpected feeling.
Precisely. It pushes and pulls the groove. And the third essential element is the use of blue notes.
Blue notes. What are those?
They're notes that are played at a slightly lower or bent pitch than you'd hear in a standard, let's say, European scale.
And why are they so important?
Because they carry all the emotion. Blue notes come from older traditions like gospel and field songs, and they express a kind of sadness or soulfulness that the strict Western scales just can't quite capture.
They're the voice of the music.
That's a great way to put it, yes.
So improvisation, syncopation, blue notes, that's our foundation. Let's move to the physical sound of jazz, starting with the engine room.
We're talking about the rhythm section? This is the heartbeat of the whole band.
Usually drums, bass, and piano or guitar.
Right. And their job is all about teamwork. They have to lock in together to keep that pulse and energy going.
And the defining rhythm of jazz is swing. How do we actually define that? It's more than just a tempo.
It's a feel. Imagine a pair of notes played perfectly evenly. In swing, you stretch out the first note just a little and shorten the second one. It creates this feeling of a skip or a bounce.
It's this forward momentum. I know the drummer is key here, especially with the ride cymbal, right?
Yes, exactly. The drummer uses the ride cymbal to create this continuous shimmering layer of sound on top of everything. That steady energy is the anchor. It's what lets the soloist up front take huge risks with really complex, fast lines without the whole thing falling apart.
So let's talk about those soloists. Who's playing the melody?
Well, for the lead roles, you're often looking at the trumpet and the trombone, the brass family. They're loud, expressive, powerful.
And the woodwinds, of course.
Essential. The saxophone and the clarinet, they give you some of the most recognizable and emotional tones in all of jazz. And you have the piano.
which is incredibly versatile.
It can do everything. It plays complex chords for the harmony, and it can play these lightning-fast melodies all at the same time.
And holding down the absolute bottom, the foundation, is the double bass.
That's the anchor of the harmony. And later on, you get other instruments, like the electric guitar came in for new textures, and sometimes you'll even hear a vibraphone. But the core idea is collaboration. Every single instrument has a very specific job to do.
And that collaboration has evolved wildly over the last 100 years. Jazz has never stayed still.
That's what makes its history so fascinating. It just innovated constantly. In the 1930s, swing music was the sound, the era of the big bands.
What exactly is a big band?
Think of a small army of musicians, usually 15 to 20 players divided into sections. You'd have a trumpet section, a trombone section, saxophone section, and the rhythm section.
Playing in a group that large,
Yeah,
it must require incredible discipline.
it does. Unlike the earlier, more free-form stuff, big band music demanded precision. The musicians were usually reading very detailed written arrangements, following a conductor.
So not a lot of improvisation there.
Well, yes and no. It was highly structured, but the composer always built in these moments where one player could step out and just unleash a powerful improvised solo.
Okay, so after the big bands, you mentioned a complete revolution in sound, bebop.
Bebop was a reaction against that big commercial sound. It was played by small groups, combos, and it was fiercely intellectual.
What do you mean by that?
The tempos were way faster. The harmonies were incredibly complex. The rhythms were jagged. It was like musicians were solving complex math problems in public.
So if swing was for dancing, bebop was for listening.
Exactly. And then after that high energy burst, you get cool jazz, a much more relaxed, smoother sound. It was softer, more reflective.
And jazz just keeps swallowing up other genres. The 70s saw fusion jazz.
Fusion was a total game changer. It combined jazz improvisation with the high energy and electric instruments of rock music, electric guitars, synthesizers, you name it. And of course, Latin jazz, which brings in these vibrant rhythms from the Caribbean and South America.
This whole evolution is really defined by the masters who drove it forward. Their recordings are like the essential textbooks.
Absolutely.
So who are the icons that you absolutely need to know?
You have to start with Louis Armstrong, a trumpet player and singer who basically changed everything. Early jazz was more of a group thing, but Armstrong was the first to really step out and establish the featured soloist.
And then there's the master of the big band format, Duke Ellington.
A creative genius. Ellington wrote thousands of pieces, many of them specifically for the unique skills of the musicians in his orchestra. Just some of the most sophisticated American music ever written.
Then you have the pioneers of bebop, like the incredible sax player, Charlie Parker.
Or Bird. He was just blindingly fast. He totally redefined what improvisation could be. And then there's Miles Davis, the trumpet player, famous for constantly reinventing his style. He led pretty much every major jazz movement from cool jazz to fusion.
And finally, we have to talk about that unparalleled voice.
Ella Fitzgerald. This is one of the greatest singers in history. He was famous for scat singing.
Using her voice like an instrument.
Exactly. She'd improvise these rapid-fire, wordless phrases, almost speaking the language of a trumpet through her voice. It's not just nonsense syllables. She was communicating complex musical ideas.
Studying those masters brings us to the practical side. How do you, as a student, actually start learning this?
The foundation isn't practice, it's listening. You have to listen deeply to those famous players to really